I was told never to knock on my neighbor's door after midnight. I just found out the horrifying reason why. My landlord gave me exactly one rule when I moved into the apartment: never knock on 3B's door after midnight. He said it with this intensity that made me uncomfortable, standing in my new living room with the lease papers still in his hands. His name was Gordon Fisk, and he had the kind of face that suggested he'd seen things he couldn't unsee. I asked why, and he said some rules exist for good reasons, and I should trust him on this one. I signed the lease anyway because rent in the city was impossible, and this place was surprisingly affordable. The building was old, built in the 1920s, with high ceilings and original hardwood floors. My apartment was 3A, right next to the mysterious 3B. For the first 3 weeks, I never saw my neighbor, never heard anything through the shared wall either, which was strange because these old buildings have thin walls. I could hear Mrs. Kapoor in 2A watching her television programs. I could hear the college students in 4B playing music, but 3B was silent, complete silence, like nobody lived there at all. I'm a nurse who works night shifts at County General, so my schedule is backwards from most people. I'd come home around 7 in the morning, sleep during the day, wake up around 4 in the afternoon. The building was usually quiet during my waking hours, which I appreciated. I'd make dinner, watch some television, maybe read before heading back to work at 11. It was a lonely routine, but I'd gotten used to it after my divorce. My ex-husband Daniel had gotten the house, the car, most of our friends. I'd gotten the student loan debt and the freedom to start over. Some days the freedom felt more like isolation, but I was working on that. One evening, about a month after moving in, I was leaving for my shift when I saw someone in the hallway. A woman, maybe in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was unlocking the door to 3B, struggling with the key. I offered to help, and she jerked away from me so violently she dropped her purse. Contents spilled across the hallway floor. I bent to help her gather things, and she said, "Don't touch anything," in a voice that was cold and sharp. I backed away with my hands up, apologizing. She collected her belongings quickly, her movements frantic and disorganized. She got the door open and disappeared inside without another word. The door slammed, and I heard multiple locks engaging. I stood in the hallway feeling like I'd somehow done something wrong by trying to be neighborly. That was my first real interaction with the woman in 3B, and it set the tone for everything that followed. At work that night, I couldn't stop thinking about her reaction, the fear in her eyes when I'd reached for her purse, the way she'd recoiled from basic human contact. I mentioned it to my coworker, a woman named Prisha who'd been a nurse for 20 years and had seen everything. She said some people are just private, that I shouldn't take it personally, but there was something else, something beyond privacy. That woman had been terrified. 2 weeks later, I came home from a particularly brutal shift. We'd lost a patient, a young mother with 3 kids, and I was emotionally drained. It was around 7:30 in the morning, and I just wanted to sleep. I was unlocking my door when I heard crying from 3B. Not loud crying, but the kind of soft, broken sobbing that suggests someone has been crying for hours. I stood in the hallway listening, debating what to do. The nurse in me wanted to check if she was okay, but Gordon's warning echoed in my head. Never knock after midnight. It wasn't after midnight, though. It was morning. Surely the rule didn't apply during daylight hours. I knocked gently on her door and called out, asking if she needed help. The crying stopped immediately. Silence stretched for maybe 30 seconds, then her voice came through the door. "Go away." Just those 2 words, flat and emotionless. I said I was her neighbor, and I'd heard her crying and wanted to make sure she was all right. She said, "I'm fine. Leave me alone." I stood there feeling helpless and intrusive. I went back to my apartment and tried to sleep, but the sound of that crying stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing patterns. The woman in 3B left her apartment every Wednesday at exactly 3 in the afternoon. She'd be gone for 2 hours, always returning at 5. She received grocery deliveries every Sunday morning. She never had visitors. The mailman would leave packages outside her door, and she'd wait until the hallway was empty before retrieving them. I wasn't trying to spy on her, but in a building this small, you notice these things. You notice when someone lives their life according to rigid schedules and careful avoidance of human contact. I wondered if she was agoraphobic or dealing with some kind of anxiety disorder. I wondered if she was lonely. I wondered if she was sick and needed help but was too proud or too afraid to ask for it. Then one night in October, everything changed. To see the full story, click the link below or go on my channel.